Today we have the 2022 Toyota Corolla Hatchback, and although not much has changed with this car, it now has a new family member, the Toyota Corolla Cross. They're actually quite a bit different and they're oriented to different audiences, but I'm going to give you a full detailed review of this Corolla Hatchback XSE, take it for a test drive, and kind of compare it to the Corolla Cross as we go along the way so you know which one is a better choice for you. Let's get started. Hey, real quick before we get started, my name is Nolan. I do full reviews like this every single week, but also so you don't waste your time, if you want to skip around, head to the description below. I've got some chapters and timestamps so you can skip around wherever you want to go. Let's jump into it. All right, let's take a look at all the exterior details on this 2022 Toyota Corolla Hatchback. This is the XSE trim. There's also an SE and an SE Nightshade, whereas opposed to the Corolla Cross, you're gonna find L-themed models because it's a little less sporty oriented compared to this Corolla. Compared to the regular Corolla, this is definitely gonna be a little more sporty, even with comparing to the sedan because of this grille. Our XSE even gives us a little chrome surround there as well. Toyota also gives us LED high and low beams standard with LED daytime running lights, and our particular model gives us adaptive front lighting for $415, so the headlights move side to side and it's a really nice option on this Corolla Hatchback. The accent lighting, the little J-hook lighting, is also a nice touch, plus an LED turn signal, so full LED on this Corolla Hatchback. You'll also find a two-tone look here where we've got the black roof, black mirror caps, black spoiler with the white paint down here. So this is the wind chill pearl paint with the two-tone look. What do you think of the two-tone? I think it looks pretty cool on this hatchback. Not always a fan on some vehicles, but I like it. And then you've got 18-inch wheels on this range-topping XSE. Dimensionally, this Corolla Hatchback is 172 inches long, so it's quite a bit shorter, almost a foot than the regular Corolla, and even a few inches shorter than the Corolla Cross. Coming to the back, you'll see this black spoiler up above. You've got LED taillights, even an LED turn signal. Those also do look pretty nice, and you can see the LED reverse light built into that as well. You got this black fascia back here with the XSE badging, but that's actually fake exhaust outlets right there. Now coming to the back of this Corolla Hatchback, there's just a little touchpad under here to open this up, and this one has a really unique option. So just take a look at this. It looks a little bit deeper than the traditional hatchback. It looks just a little bit bigger, and the reason is this one removed the spare tire and gave us just a tire inflator kit. So this is an option. You can get rid of it, have this enhanced cargo space option if you want, or you can keep the spare tire. But this really kind of opens things up. Without it, you would have a lot less space, something where the floor actually comes up pretty high. So there's quite a bit more space. Overall, there's a little bit in the pocket and a tie down on each side. You've got a 40-60 split fold with the seats. You do have to go to the second row to do that, to pull it down. And that does give you some more space, but with this enhanced cargo space option, it's definitely not a flat transition in there. But you can open this up, and this is what makes a hatchback more practical. So when comparing to the Corolla Cross in general, that will give you more space, but this extended version or enhanced cargo version area is probably fairly competitive with that. Now let's look at the front seats. So first of all, I really like this lighter interior, this little two-tone light colored interior, but you might be able to see a little bit on this seat, and the passenger seat is definitely even worse where there's some color that has worn off. So cleaning these seats would probably be a pain in the butt with the light color, something to keep in mind. But the bolstering on here is actually pretty decent. You kind of have like a cloth insert. Otherwise, this is real leather on this top XSE trim. So you've got your tilt and your height adjustment plus two-way lumbar, which is great to see even on a small car. The seats on this XSE are also going to be heated. No ventilation, no memory settings, nothing like that on this car. Now hopping into the back seat, you're going to get the same materials back here, the same colors. I like the color scheme, but like you saw in the front seat, there's definitely a negative to that. But legroom in this Corolla Hatchback is definitely not ideal, but considering how small it is, it's not terrible. So here's a look at my legroom at 5'9" behind where I would sit. I don't really have much for foot space with where I have it located, and not a ton of knee space, but it's enough for some people. They're not gonna find any air conditioning vents back here, just a little storage area, no charging ports either. One nice thing is you still get a soft padded armrest and you get your own little upwards bottle holder. I like this instead of the door pocket version. It is good to see that you do still get a little center folding armrest here with some padding and some average size, a little bit bigger than average size cup holders. And then I can even sit up tall back here. So it's not super short like some cars. There's still some decent headroom. So It's not great, it's not ideal. A car seat is going to be very tight fitting behind these seats, but you can throw some people in back here. Now, one of the biggest differences with this and the Corolla Cross is going to be the overall space. The Corolla Cross is going to give you more legroom overall, more space in general, although neither of them are known for being spacious. Of this Corolla hatchback, you'll see that it has a very unique kind of dash layout. It's somewhat modern with a little bit of kind of traditional Toyota, or at least the latest Toyota tablet style infotainment. But let's take a look at everything. So first of all, the steering wheel is leather wrapped right here. It is pretty comfortable to hold on to. This is the newer version of the Toyota steering wheel with pretty easy to use controls on all of these buttons. And then this display up overhead will be a smaller display on lower trims or this larger display here. And you can see the little tire pressure gauge thing that just came on when I turned the car on. So that's all that is. But a digital display in the middle that can be controlled with the steering wheel, driver assist features. Otherwise, there's not like a trip A, trip B with the fuel economy, but you can see trip A, trip B with the actual mileage. I wish this was a little bit different, but it still gives you enough information and most of what you need. Over on the doors, this interior is really cool looking with the light color up above, dark down below, and you do have a little bit of padding, a pretty big grab handle right here, and then all automatic one-touch windows here as well, which was kind of a nice surprise. There's a little bit of storage down here too. So my larger bottle, longer, taller bottle doesn't really fit the way it's supposed to, but it kind of works. Otherwise, there's space for a couple of other different bottles in storage. We have the manual transmission, but if you have the CVT, you can get paddle shifters on the steering wheel. And this manual transmission is actually a little bit interesting because it has what's called an intelligent manual transmission button, to where for beginners, for example, it will kind of help modulate the clutch. If you have some rough starts, if you push that button, it'll make it a little easier, essentially kind of rev match when you downshift. So if I push that button, it will also show up on the screen so you know when it's activated or not. As far as the throws go, it's actually pretty nice. It's not super short, sports car type of throws, but I really do like it for the most part, and it's been easy to drive for a manual transmission, especially this is kind of geared for people that aren't really used to manual transmission too. The heated seat buttons are right there, and then there's just a little tiny storage area right there. It's literally like a half pipe kind of shape. It's not ideal. Nothing really sits in there very well. You can get wireless charging optional, but we don't have it. And then up here, Toyota gives us an 8-inch screen. So with this, we have, as you can see, we've got Apple CarPlay on here. It is not wireless. It does have to be wired, but you've got physical buttons for shortcuts on each side, including a volume knob, tuning knob. You can customize this home screen. We don't have the JBL audio system. It's just your standard system. You can get that optional, but let's go into reverse, and there's just a regular backup camera. No dynamic lines, which is kind of surprising. However, there is dual zone climate control on this top trim here, so you and your passenger can have your own temperatures, even though this is a pretty small cabin. And then pretty easy to use controls down here. Going back a little more, there is a brake hold button, which I actually do enjoy using when I'm driving a manual. We don't have to keep a foot on the brake as well. Cup holders and bottle holders are really quite small. They'll fit some like takeout type drinks with narrow bottoms or some mugs. But some bottles that are more of like a uniform size like this doesn't really fit all that well. But it's okay. It's just kind of a really crowded area with limited storage. And then we have this center armrest, which is soft to the touch. It doesn't move forward, and it's pretty darn small inside, but you do get an extra USB port and 12-volt power outlet, because the USB port to plug your phone in and use Apple CarPlay is right up there. On our top XSE trim, this is even a manual flipping mirror, which I'm fine with, but some of you would probably expect an automatic dimming mirror to be standard on here. More on the lack of storage, there's no sunglass holder, so there's not really any good little storage cubbies except that little section down there, which is less than ideal. Now as we move under the hood, this Corolla hatchback only gives us one engine option, but it's the same as the Corolla Cross for the most part as well, with a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, but it is direct and port injected, which is great. It gives us 168 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque, which isn't a lot, but this is a little bit quicker than some of you might expect, and this actually has one thing as an option, which is the TRD air filter, and this can come with a CVT transmission or 6-speed manual like we have in this one. Miles per gallon will be the best on the base model with the CVT, up to 42 miles per gallon. This one with the manual, the XSE, 37 miles per gallon on the highway. but those are both better than the Corolla Cross, which is going to be quite a bit less because of its size and ground clearance. All right, y'all, we are just getting going in this 2022 Corolla Hatchback. So I have driven the Corolla Hatchback and the Corolla Sedan and even the regular old Corolla Hybrid as well. And you know, this one has the manual transmission, which I don't drive very often, but lately I have had some to drive, and this one is a pleasant one to drive. It's a very easy one to drive, so if you're a little bit nervous about a manual transmission but you want one, this is an easy one to drive. It even has a button you can push to make it even a little bit easier to drive and less likely to stall it. And overall first impressions of the Corolla. This generation Corolla just feels more fun to drive than the previous generation Corollas. It's got a little bit more power. You got a little different powertrain, and if you don't have the manual transmission, you'll have just the regular old CVT transmission, which is pretty common nowadays. But this Corolla is a little bit more fun to drive than you would expect in terms of its handling and its driving dynamics. It's not a standout in any one particular category, but I would still say that it's somewhat fun to drive for a Corolla and for what your expectations might be. Now, in terms of the handling, I think that this handles fine. The weight of the steering is actually not super heavy, not super light either. It's a little bit on the light side, but the car feels pretty well planted and just flat, if I could say that. Like, driving around corners is actually pretty comfortable in this car. So if you kind of want something a little bit more fun for a hatchback, you know, this is an attractive option. I don't want to compare this to, you know, faster luxury premium type hatchbacks, because it's not. It's just for what you might have expected from a Corolla. This is a pleasant drive. I do have a little bit of complaints about road noise, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But ride comfort in here is a little on the stiff side, but really it's not bad. For this class of a car, it's perfectly fine. It's you know, just a couple little bumps right here. Usually shorter cars, shorter wheelbase type of cars have harsher, bumpier rides, and it's not bad at all in here. I will take this for my family. It's really not a deal breaker at all in terms of buying a car, and it's a little bit smoother than some vehicles that you'll probably drive in this class as well. Now, one thing about the intelligent manual transmission, so we're in 6th gear right now. I'm gonna go down to 3rd gear. It actually somewhat rev matches for you to where if you want to downshift and pass somebody, it's a little easier to do that, so you don't have to actually bump up the revs on your own. So something to keep in mind. And with the manual, we don't have a sport mode. You are your own sport mode. And we've got people in front of us. This actually has a little bit more torque than I was kind of expecting for just a naturally aspirated engine. It's not like a turbo by any means, but the quick little punch right off the bat is not bad. And in terms of handling, I think the biggest difference compared to the previous generation Corolla is just how well this feels in corners, handling wise. So right here again, we're in 5th gear, going about 45. Let me go down to 3rd. It rev matched, and that was easy enough. So you don't even have to bump those RPMs. That's kind of part of what I'm talking about with the intelligent, easier to drive type of manual transmission. One thing to note is that this does have Toyota's safety sense, where it's a lane keeping system. This does not have lane centering, but it will keep you in your lanes. It's got radar cruise control. I have that set right now, so even with a manual transmission, you can have a radar cruise control set up and ready to go. So to an extent, you know, if it gets to a certain speed where you're going to have to downshift or upshift, you're going to need to do that. But that's that. But for most of you that are good at driving manuals, it's probably going to be quick enough. You'll be able to get enough power out of it. Passing power is not great, but at least you can control your own gears to an extent. So, and braking on here, braking's actually quite good. I feel confident braking in this car. But let's talk about my main complaint with this car here in just a second. So as we get on a rougher textured road here, you're going to notice that there's a lot of road noise. We're going only 40 something, and there's just a ton of road noise that gets in here. A little bit of squeaks and rattles and all that too, which in this class, maybe it's okay, acceptable, but I would rather not. And it's louder than most of the things I've driven in this class. The Mazda 3 is significantly quieter. The Hyundai Elantra is quieter as well. The Volkswagen Jetta is quieter. The Civic is not quiet, but maybe it's quieter than this. I don't remember. But road noise is pretty bad in here. So if that's something that you think about, something to keep in mind. Ergonomics in here is good, except I wish that there was a little bit more like storage or a better center console layout, but it's a small car, so I mean, you kind of got to work with the space that you have. But let's go ahead and wrap things up on this Corolla hatchback. So to wrap things up on this 2022 Toyota Corolla hatchback, Toyota really gives you a pretty good value for a small hatchback that's pretty fun to drive, efficient, and still has some decent space and features inside. It even has pretty good driving dynamics and a manual transmission if you want one. If you're looking for a little more space, maybe a little more practicality, then the Corolla Cross is probably the better option for you, and it has all-wheel drive, but it's less efficient. So which one would you go for? Thank you so much for watching. Leave your thoughts down below on what you think of this Corolla Hatchback XSE. Subscribe if you want to see more videos, and a thumbs up would be super helpful. Have a great day.